While growing up, you've probably heard many people say things along the lines of, your 20s are just for fun, you've got time to relax and chill out, or you don't need to figure anything out right now, just enjoy yourself. The people telling you this may want you to believe it, but here's the real truth. Your 20s are not and really shouldn't be throwaway years, where you just chill and hope everything just figures itself out. They are the foundation for everything you build and want to achieve later on in your life. So, in this video, I want to share what I've learned so far from being someone who recently graduated high school, and although I just turned 20, I feel like I've already learned a lot from the very few things I've experienced and from what I've seen happen to other people. So, if you're in your 20s or even close to them, and you want to feel like you're actually building something you can be proud of, then you found the right place. To start, I wanted to mention why exactly our 20s are such an important time in our lives. I would personally say that the main reason is that this is one of the few times in your life where you can truly go in any direction. You can change careers, take wild risks, or even move to a new place. And when you fail, which let's be honest, you most likely will, you still have time to go back and try again. There's really this sense of freedom you have right now during your 20s that you may never get back for the rest of your life. During this time, you probably don't have many bills to pay, don't have the responsibility of kids, or are tied down to a rigid job that limits your time. Personally, starting this channel is one of those risks for me, although on a much smaller scale compared to other paths you could take. Even if this channel doesn't blow up, I'll know I'll walk away with the skills, discipline, and confidence that apply to many other aspects in my life right now and in the future. The same principle can be applied with something like going to the gym and working out consistently. I started lifting and building my routine at 15. I didn't realize it at the time, but building that habit changed how I approached everything else in my life, such as school, work, and even my own focus for any particular task. And even through my limited experiences so far, I've learned that the little things you start building in your 20s are the things that will follow you for the rest of your life. All of the habits and lessons you learn now during this time are what's going to stick with you, and if you decide to waste it and not try to do anything productive with your time, then you're going to have a lot more trouble dealing with bigger issues that you come across later down the road. Now, let's be honest. There are a lot of ways to waste your 20s and absolutely cook your future self, especially in today's society. I would say number one, it would be neglecting your health. Eating like trash, skipping sleep, and not being physically active all add up. And sure, in the moment, you may not be too concerned as you're young and your body is more adaptable, but later on, that fades away. As soon as your 30s come around, you start to realize this, and by then, it may be too late to make a meaningful change. At that point, your habits, especially trying to build a gym routine, become harder to change and implement. I would say the next thing that I feel like goes under the radar a bit would be waking up late every day. People will argue that it doesn't matter when I work, as long as I get all the things I want done. And yeah, in theory, this sounds great, but the practicality of this actually happening consistently is very slim. In reality, most people aren't actually productive at night and at certain times. They're just procrastinating and pretending it's time to grind. The truth is that most people have specific windows in the day when they're naturally more focused and productive. For me personally, this is the morning, early afternoon, and for a bit of time in the evening. But by the time dinner hits, I usually hit a wall and only have a certain amount of energy, depending on the day, to be really productive, and powering through that slump every night just isn't realistic or consistent. So, for myself personally, I decided to wake up earlier in my day and also go to bed a little earlier, and by doing that little change, I'm maximizing those high focus hours and my overall productivity. However, if we look at the flip side of this, if I started my day let's say at 9 or 10 a.m., I've already lost a chunk of that productive time. And when this happens, it can feel like there's not enough time in the day as a whole, when really I just started it too late to use the best part of it. And as a disclaimer, I'm not saying you're forbidden from staying up late or sleeping in. I'm just more so talking about your day to day and what your average day should look like, as you're not gaining anything by staying up late or sleeping in. I know a few people may argue that they don't really have anything to wake up early for, so this shouldn't really apply to them. But that's kind of my point. By waking up earlier, you're going to have that extra time to finally do something and give yourself that reason. It can start small. It can be simply starting a book or learning a skill that interests you, but you'd really be surprised how much waking up early will help you with applying yourself. Now, I'd say the third thing would be living for validation and not prioritizing the things that really matter in your life. I see time and time again that people my age always need to go out, spend money, party, and go post it all online in order to prove something. And again, I'm not saying don't enjoy your life at all, because you really should. But when your main goal becomes to constantly feel good, you actually set yourself up for feeling lost later on in your life, and even with your current self. And looking ahead in the future, you don't want to wake up one day in the later half of your 20s and realize you've built nothing, because you were too busy chasing a feeling instead of building good habits for a good life. Moving to the next thing I want to talk about is a pretty big lie people tell themselves, and that is the "I'll figure it out later" statement. The real truth to this statement, though, is what you do every day right now is already shaping who you become, and by deciding to do nothing and just coast, that is in itself a pretty big choice and decision. However, if you decide to build some of the good habits that I've already mentioned, such as waking up early, working on your goals, eating right, and even managing your own money, you're going to carry those and continuously build upon them for decades. On the flip side, if you waste them, make excuses, and ignore your priorities, that becomes your default option for the bigger issues that you'll eventually come across later on in your life. It's not just about your personal goals either, but it's about your identity you want to make for yourself. For me, going to the gym gave me the physical benefits that motivated me to get started with it in the first place. But I'd say even more importantly, it taught me the discipline and how when you stick to something consistently, you'll eventually see results. It gave me the confidence to stick with something even when I didn't feel like it, which showed in many other aspects of my life, such as school, my relationship, and now with this channel. The reality is, good and bad habits will ripple into every area of your life, and the earlier you can realize it, the more benefits you can gain from it than negatives. Another thing that I've started to notice very recently is that too many people will still decide to live like they're 18 when they just graduated high school. They act like they're still trying to impress the same people, still bragging about the same old stories, and still chasing the same kind of attention. And here's the thing, the things and the person you were in high school hold quite literally zero value once you enter your adult life. It doesn't matter who you were in high school or where you were in high school, and for the people who decide to keep living like it's the past, they're the ones who miss out on what's ahead of them. And this piece of advice that I'm giving isn't to cut everyone else from high school and completely start over, but it's instead to take a step back and analyze your values. By doing this and deciding what actually matters to you, you'll be able to focus your attention on it and not waste time on any of the bullshit that drags on after you graduate from high school. Alright, so for the majority of this video, we've talked about what not to do, and now I want to focus on a few things that I feel like everyone should try their best to implement into their life during their 20s. Number one would be your health, and as I've mentioned multiple times already, your health should 100% be a priority. Get in shape not for looks, but for your overall personal energy. In order to do this, you need to be able to show up every day mentally and physically. And if you're constantly tired, eating like trash, or skipping sleep, it catches up fast and impacts your abilities in other parts of your life. And I'm not saying you need to be a bodybuilder, but just be someone who at the very least takes care of themselves. The next thing would be learning skills and learning as much as possible, as this is the best time in your life to build your own personal toolkit. It could be editing, coding, marketing, design, sales, literally whatever, and it can be anything that is of interest to you and that you think will be a benefit. Stacking your skills now in your 20s is what gives you the options later on down the road. You don't have to be a master at everything either, but just by simply picking a lane, getting good, and being open to learning is how you can leverage the time you have now. Self-awareness is another important thing, as you really need to be able to pay attention to yourself. Knowing what drains you, what excites you, and what you actually care about, like I mentioned before, will help you know where to focus your energy and not leave you feeling burnt out from the things that don't really matter. Knowing all this stuff about yourself will help you say yes to the right opportunities, and more importantly, say no to the stuff that doesn't really fit who you are. When you compare this to the average person, most people never slow down long enough to figure themselves out, leading them down a path that they don't really care about, or even worse, a path that limits their options for the rest of their life. So what I'd say to do is not be one of these people, and instead take the time to do the self-assessment and see what really matters to you. The final thing I would like to mention, and is honestly the most freeing part, is to remember that during this time and for the rest of your life, you don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to know your dream job, your 10-year plan, or even your life partner. You just need to be trying and truly be curious about where your life is headed. Care about where your life is headed, and be intentional with the choices you make and the things you choose to value. That alone separates you from 90% of people your age. Realize that it's okay to mess up, and it's honestly the best thing you can do during this time. What's not okay though is never trying and just floating through life hoping something clicks. Instead, be someone who shows up, even when you don't know the outcome, and you'll really start to notice that that is what makes the difference for where your life starts to go. So to close off, if you're in your 20s right now, don't give them away. Don't sleepwalk through them, and don't waste them trying to look cool for people who won't even matter in 5 years. Instead, use this time to build discipline, self-awareness, and a life that really feels like you and one that you feel like you won't regret. And in the end, remember, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be curious and be intentional with the choices that you're making. And if you made it this far, I want to just say thank you and feel free to subscribe, hit that like, and drop a comment with one habit you'd like to start building in your 20s. And yeah, thank you and take care.